What's going on? I just taught a class on social media sharing some of my best tips on how to grow your business from social media. Please go check it out. So just want to introduce myself. My name is Mike Schulte. I run a team of 8 at Citi Habitats currently. We cover Manhattan, Brooklyn, and Queens on both the residential and commercial sides of the business. The majority of my and our clients generally are developers and landlords, and that's kind of why we segued into doing the commercial side as well. It just made sense to bookend the deals rather than just to the residential side. And what I found is when you become the anomaly, it's very easy to attract more business because so many people we know just do one thing, like I'll do rentals or I'll do sales, and then some people do even rentals and sales, but very few brokers do both sides of the business. And if your clients are the people that own it, they're the ones that are buying commercial properties anyway or selling commercial properties anyway. So it just makes sense. So I've been in the business about a decade now, a little over a decade. And about 3.5 years ago, a little bit longer than that, about 4 years ago, I found out that my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, was pregnant with my son. And I was your typical real estate agent, like working 30 hours a week and making 40 to 70 grand a year, like just your average run-of-the-mill New York real estate agent. And she was like, well, we're having a kid, you need to go make 25 grand in the next 60 days or go find a real job. And I was like, whoa. I'm like, I put in 6.5 years, I'm not just walking away, and needless to say, I made that money and I'm still here. And I decided it was time to really truly build my team. I had worked with my pops at that point and I had a conversation with him. I was like, listen, I need you to step back. I need you to have no input. I'm like, you're 90% retired already. Like, we're just helping you get along to that because at the end of the day, I need to build my future. And without blinking an eye, he was like, sure. So I took over the team, I started expanding, and then I realized that the world was changing because of technology. And more business I envisioned going through various channels because we're consuming less on things like this and more on things like that. So if you look at total consumption, like we've seen the charts of TV consumption going down and down and down and down, but I think as a society, we're actually consuming more because we're still consuming some stuff on these things, but we're consuming a ton on our phones. So I also realized that for whatever reason in real estate, people hold information so close to the chest, don't share anything. And I thought it was an opportunity because I believe giving away everything for free is by far the best strategy. Like, we'll go over a whole bunch of different things and not knocking any one of you individually, but I'd be surprised if 2 of you implemented this stuff into what you're doing because it's just the general nature of who we are as people. So I didn't know how to video edit, I didn't know anything, I knew I just wanted to put out video content. And I taught myself how to video edit on YouTube and put out 300 or so pieces of content over the next 2 years, 100% myself. And then decided I was sick and tired of editing videos and decided I would hire a videographer. And pretty much at that same point also realized that so much of my content was just New York City real estate based, and if you're not in New York City real estate or you don't have some sort of real estate connection, like you're not watching real estate New York videos, you're just not. So I was like, okay, how do I segue to whatever's next? And realized that being a lifelong New Yorker, I can use that angle. And this is me. Like, I go to $20 million things dressed like this. And as much as you laugh, I can tell you I get those same laughs from people. Sometimes when I walk in, they're like, are you the super? And what I find to be most interesting is 9 times out of 10 after engaging with them, they still want to fuck with me. So what it made me realize is that because we're shifting from this to that, we're at a very interesting point in society where this, and I'm not picking on you, this
I don't want to be wearing
doesn't.
this.
So then why are you?
Because I've been office with the dress code and client facing, and
Then my argument to you would be find a new office. Because I'd be willing to bet, even in your business, that there's somewhere that can embrace totally and truly who you are. I think authenticity is one of the most undervalued assets right now. And I think it's going to become more and more valuable at every moment. We're already starting to see it if you look at what the Chinese government is doing with giving people scores. That's coming. You're going to all have a score. It's going to be like a realness score. There's going to be various metrics that overlay as to who you are in 15, 20 years.
That was an episode in Black Mirror. Did you see that?
I haven't, but people have told me about that. But it's real because we have all the data, and you know, the top 5 technologies companies have been collecting the data for a decade and a half, and that's why when you're sitting talking, you know, to somebody about, hey, you know, I had a great beer the other day, then 20 minutes later you get hit with an ad from their competitor because they're listening to everything that you say. So I fuck with them sometimes. I'm like, I love teddy bears. Just to throw off their algorithm. So I shifted my story to telling more so the story of New York. From my perspective. Because we all watch or have watched $1 Million Listing at some point, and I've lived here my whole life, and I can count on one hand the people I know that live in a $5 million plus apartment or home. And for me, it's like, well, let's see the rest of what New York is, and let me show you what the rest of New York looks like. And then that turned into a lot of other offshoots and trying to do things. And then about a year ago, I created a podcast called Made in New York, where I talk to people who make things in New York. And make is a very relative term. Some recent guests, if you follow on.
So the one with Danny Nasty?
I did one with Danny Nasty. I just recently did one with Subway Creatures. I don't know if any of you follow that account on social media. We just posted one with a guy by the name of Andy Krinack, who runs Gary Vaynerchuk's social media. Everything that Gary Vee puts on social media is this dude. And it's been a process. Like, we've had models, we've had artists, and ultimately for me, I believe when you look at winners, they all sound the same because that's what winning looks like. But what you'll notice in it is there's multiple ways around a circle. So it's like you may do things a little differently than you do things, but that doesn't mean that you're on different paths. It just means you're at different start points on the circle. And I very much so realized that the importance of bringing it all together, the social side of things, the being you and the putting out consistent content was a key factor. So when was it? Monday? Sunday? It was like 3 years? Monday?
That was...
I don't even know what day of the week
That
was.
was
Monday.
Monday.
Early this week was 3 years since I put out my first video. And just to watch the progression of what's gone on in that period of time is insane. And the reason I'm telling you this is because I'm just now getting to a point personally where I'm getting consistent business through the networks that I'm on, whether it's Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn or YouTube or SoundCloud or whatever the hell it may be. And this is something I preach heavily to my agents. I do have one agent who's very much so on a similar trajectory. And it's hard because you're putting in work and putting in work and putting in work and not necessarily seeing any sort of result. But that's the way the world works. You know, we all know the adage, it takes 10,000 hours to become a master in something. And that's pretty much 2 years of full-time anything. Now, it's hard to consider social media full-time. So when you take into the account how many hours you have to put in order to hit that 10,000 hour metric, you're probably more in the 4 to 5 year range because you're not putting 8 hours a day into social media. You're maybe putting, and I'm not talking like perusing and looking at chicks or like looking at food or your friend's vacation. I'm talking like looking at it from a how do I get attention standpoint, because that's really the point of it is the attention. And the consistency is ultimately, and I'm veering off a little, the consistency is ultimately the secret sauce. It's just being consistent. Because what you post doesn't matter. We'll talk about what you should post, but it's the consistency of posting. Because essentially every time you press the button, you're subconsciously punching your followers in the head. And you're building that connection between yourself and real estate. So, sorry, why am I here today? Well, I'm here to share my story, to answer any questions. Frankly, I'm also using this as a possible opportunity to find new agents. Because for me, at the end of the day, I'm looking to scale my team to probably somewhere in the 25 agent range. So it always makes sense to meet people, and you can go to networking events, you can go to broker open houses, but then like you're meeting the 8 other people that didn't show up here, not the 4 of you that did. So in my mind, it just made sense. And the type of person that I am, I always want to give back. It's just in my DNA. So I enjoy this, and then I'll use this piece of content probably as a webinar somewhere, to use and drive additional traffic.
That's a real quick question.
Yeah.
You said something about you 6.5 years in the business. You were the regular run-of-the-mill agent, 40 to 70,000. I've been 2 years in the business, and I'm kind of in that same place. What was that switch like for you?
So before I did this, I ran Circuit Cities, the old electronic retailer.
Yeah.
And back in those days, I would work 60, 70, 80-hour weeks. So I took a step and I was like, fuck. Like, I put it in so hard for somebody else, now I gotta put it in for me. And it was just an awakening. Like, her being pregnant, like if she didn't get pregnant, I might not have had that awakening at that moment. But that was definitely part of the catalyst. But then it's just realizing that you're only gonna get what you put in. We all know that, doing the same thing over and over, you're never gonna get a different result.
Yeah.
I think it's about honesty. I think it's about looking in the mirror and honestly having a conversation with yourself. And I think most people won't do that because it's uncomfortable. And one thing that I preach extensively to my agents is you should need to learn to love uncomfortable, because that's your best friend. And that's where all your growth is. Because it's the uncomfortable things that you don't do, which is why you stay where you are. So, what's your why? I can't answer that. Only you can. But it really becomes about being who you are and being you. And I think that ties back to this. I'm not comfortable in a suit at all. In 2018, I wore a suit 4 times. 3 of which were to like weddings, funerals, and like award ceremonies. The other time was because the president of my company asked, and I couldn't say no. And I was like, all right, sure. And I'm not, like, I wouldn't not hire somebody in a suit, but I wouldn't hire somebody who wears a suit that says they don't want to wear a suit just because they wear a suit. And I think that shift in being true to who you are is what's going to keep real estate brokers relevant when Amazon comes and eats half to 2/3 of the real estate business. And we'll talk more about that in a second. What do I expect for the future? I expect to continue doing this. I expect to continue creating more content. I'm creating a series right now that it's called How New Yorkers Live, where we look at how everyday New Yorkers to very wealthy New Yorkers live. So like from the bodega to bagatelle and everything in between. And I think that's important. I think as we consume less on this and more on this, it's creating the captivating moments that keep you. And like think about what keeps you as you're watching a YouTube video or watching a video on Instagram or wherever it is, what keeps you there, right? And I think a lot of it ties into a couple of things. One, I think it ties into our internal bullshit meter as to how we feel about the person that we're watching or what we're watching. And then I think it ties into the value that it's providing. And I think that's incredibly important. So I want to talk about first, and if you guys have any questions, feel free to interject. We're fine, there's only 4 of us. First, I want to talk about networks that I currently play on and where I think you should be playing. So obviously, first and foremost, Facebook/Instagram. I think the 2 of them are where the large majority of people you are going to find will be. I then also am very, very, very bullish on LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is, in my mind, kind of what social media should be. You don't have as much of the politics. You don't have as much of like the scandalous photos. You don't have as much of like the meme bullshit. It's just professionals connecting. I've closed $1 million+ deals from people I've never met and just connected with through LinkedIn. It's where business people come, you know, to connect. So it's like it's that extra layer in where we are from a social standpoint. I also think there's incredible value in YouTube if you can create content. And that's a big challenge, you know, because what you put on Instagram is very different than what goes on YouTube. And it takes work and it takes time and it can be a fucking headache. Like when I was doing it myself, I was putting in 5 to 7 hours a day creating and distributing the content. And then it just became a question of time. Like it didn't make sense anymore for me to continue to do this as I'm growing my team. I might as well hire somebody that, you know, and plus the view is different from there than like this. I also think SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, everything along the audio realm is incredibly important too, because the same way we're transitioning away from this is the same way we're transitioning away from radio. So the little time any of you may spend in a car, you probably listen to a lot less radio than you would have 5, 10, 15 years ago. You're listening, you have an aux cable, and you're listening to either to music or podcast or whatever it may be. And I think that's going to continue as we see more and more move towards audio. And that ties into Amazon 100%.
Like the Alexa, you're talking about like the voice activated
Correct.
stuff?
So right now, and we'll go into this, there's 100 million Alexa devices in the United States. And they're in their early infancy. They're listening to everything. They're recording the same way Facebook and Instagram are through the microphone on your phone. And I think we're more prone to ask technology to do things now than at any other point. And I think that's only going to continue. So I think in the very near future, Amazon is going to buy one of the largest real estate companies in the country, which to me is either an NRT, an Element, or where I think they're actually going to buy is a Compass. And they're going to activate some version of, hey Alexa, help me find a home, or hey Alexa, help me find a broker, or hey Alexa, how much is my home worth? And then they're going to take all of those leads and filter them through the company that they just bought. Because here's what technology can allow. You're like, hey Alexa, how much is my home worth? Thank you. We'd love to connect you with the broker in 10 minutes or 2 minutes. Or are you available to get on a call now? And literally from that moment and they say yes, you could have a broker on the phone inside of the minute. If you create a system that, you know, obviously these things haven't been done yet, but the technology exists. Like I'm not talking about anything that's far-fetched. Right. So think about that experience from a customer standpoint. You have a question about real estate, next thing you know you have a broker on the phone. And what that's going to do is that's going to put 50 to 65% of the brokers out of business because you're not going to be able to get clients anymore. Because the attention is going to be pulled away from the street easies. The same way the attention, if you've been in this business long enough, was pulled away from Craigslist. The same way if you've been in this business long enough was pulled away from the New York Times.
New York Times, yeah.
Right. So it's always changing. It's just where it's changing to. And the last network that I think is important is Medium. So Medium is a written-based network. So if you're into writing, it's amazing. Now, what I would say is, while I am on all of these networks, I also have a very type A personality. And if like being in front of the camera isn't you, don't do it. But do what is you. Like if you write, I would be all over Medium, and I'd also be all over Facebook and Instagram, because I would use captions as an opportunity to tell stories. But I would look into what stays true to who you are, and that's where I would play. So any questions yet? Because I'm going to start with Facebook, and then we're going to go on. Cool. So when it comes to Facebook, I think when it comes, once again, when we talk about posting, I think what you post isn't as important as the consistency of posting. And I think that the fact is we all have a unique job that allows us to see New York in a very interesting way. And I think it's about sharing what you see and who you are. Like in the case of you and title, I would talk to title people, other title people. I would explain title processes. I would also, in that same vein, because if you're not buying a place or you're not a real estate agent, who the fuck cares about title? I would provide value into more of what's important to you in New York, right? Maybe like the parks. So let me show you my favorite part of Central Park that nobody knows about, or my favorite this, or my favorite cookie, or my favorite whatever the fuck it is, right? You need to become the clearinghouse of information where it's not just your business, but it's your life. It's showing your life to the world. Now, some people aren't comfortable with that. If you're not comfortable with that, please go find another job, because you won't last. And I'm not trying to be offensive, but technology is only going to increase. There's something called Moore's Law, which dictates that every 18 months, computing speed doubles. So if you think about where we are today and think about these things, think about how in a decade, this was a $25,000 computer a decade ago. Now it's in your pocket. So the next step is this going into your eye as a contact, or this becoming a chip that goes in your wrist or your whatever it is. It's gonna happen. It may sound crazy. We're all gonna do it. So if you're not comfortable being that person, go find a job that fits more of what you want to do, because running a business you're just not going to be successful if you can't play on these things. It's just the world we live in. So I would post all of that. The other thing is I would engage, and I've done this heavily, in neighborhood groups. So for every neighborhood that you may work in or want to work in, there's a Facebook group. In some cases, there may be multiple Facebook groups. And these are people that are there already. Now, you can't run in and be like, hey, I'm a real estate broker. If anybody needs any help, just let you know. You got to engage with these people, you know? You got to talk about, oh man, I live in Glendale, which for those of you who may not know is just next to Ridgewood and Bushwick. And people complain about the most ridiculous things, like, look how this person parked, or I can't believe there's garbage on the street, right? Engaging with those posts may sound boring as fuck. But the reality is every time you do it and people see your name and they know they're connecting with you, they have the opportunity to click. And then your profile pops up. And then like, oh. So it's important because that's where people are going. We're used to now clicking. If you would have thought about 10 years ago, we would have thought that was crazy. I'm not going to click and look at who somebody is. That's weird. Now we swipe right. Normally, 10 years ago, we made fun of people who dated online. It's just the progression of technology layering, making things easier. So the engagement is important. It's also about providing value. And it doesn't mean, well, I think your house is worth $4.2 million. No, it's like, I like your bushes. I think they actually, do a great thing. Tell me about them. How long have you been in gardening? And flip it always to giving somebody the opportunity to talk about themselves. People love to talk about themselves. They can do it all day long. That's why I do a podcast, because it's easy. I ask a question, they just talk. And then I listen for what they say, and then I ask more questions. But what you'll find is most of our peers on social just put out real estate shit. And I think it's horrible. And I think that's why people disconnect. Because there's nothing to it unless, A, you're a broker, or 2, you're actively looking for real estate. If you're not, you're like, fuck this dude, fuck this chick, like I'm not interested. So it's important in doing that. The other thing that you should do is be very cognizant of who you follow and engaging with those that you follow, even if they don't follow you in return. Because, if we think of like the top real estate agents in New York, right? Obviously, a Ryan Serhant or a John Gomes is probably not going to reply to your post, right? But the reality is there's thousands of comments to posts that they put up, which are opportunities for you to connect with others that are in that network. So while it may not always be the shark, there's a ton of other fish in that pool. So it's very important to engage with their content, once again providing value. With whatever your value may be. Like, for example, Ryan Serhant has a training course. I don't know if you guys seen this, that he's about to teach, like a real estate training course. And I commented, I think you'd get more value if this was free. Right? Because I believe that to be true. Right? Is it a shot? Absolutely. Do I think he's wrong for doing this as a paid gig? 100%. Would I tell that to his face? Yes. Do I care? No. But literally 3 people DM'd me. And they were like, yo, I can't agree with you. I couldn't agree with you more. And then conversations then started from that one post connected to this should be free. Because think about this, nobody really gives you shit in life. But you remember when people do. No one really buys you a cup of coffee. No one takes you out to dinner. No one buys you a drink. So when somebody does, you're like, oh shit, that dude, or that chick, or that situation. So if you're consistently providing value, people want to give back to you. People want to see you win. I mean, I get DMs every day like, oh my God, I see you putting it in so hard, your motivation, this is great. And that's incredibly humbling, don't get me wrong. But what it is now the fact that I've known that I've cemented myself in that person's brain. Because, I mean, I do think I'm putting it in hard, straight up, if I'm honest. But that's not why I'm doing it at all. I'm doing it because I see the transition in the period that we're in. So I think it's incredibly, incredibly important. Any questions so far? Yes.
Is it too, I won't say too late, but for lack of a better word, is it too late to get a
No.
foothold in that?
No. You know why?
Just getting started, I think.
So I'll tell you why. Where do you work now?
Keller Williams.
Okay. So in your office, and in Keller, obviously, you guys are in a slightly different situation, more probably remote than anything. Just think about your peers in your office, or the peers that are whatever it is. Think about how many of them are doing it. You probably could count on both your hands, and that's it. So, are you a little late to the game? Yeah. But frankly, most of your peers don't even know there's a game. So, if you were to start today, you would be ahead of 95% of the fucking brokers in this business. So, are you still behind that 5% that have been doing it for a couple of years? Absolutely. But then it just becomes how much you're willing to put in, how long, and how consistent you can ultimately be. But no, you're not too late. If you ask me this question in 5 years, I might say yes. But then that's really dependent upon other factors that are going on. But that's a great question. So when it comes to, I want to talk about Facebook ads real quick. I'm not going to get deep into this and Dylan can tell you because he's learning this whole process right now, because I'm at the point where I'm taking everything that I'm doing from an advertising point and making him do it. Not because I don't want to do it anymore, but because I want to empower my videographer to do more so he can grow as an individual. But what you want to do when it comes to ads is you want to look at what you've posted. You want to look at what's done best. And then you want to think of what group you want to test and send this content to. So if you have a post about your favorite pizza, let's just shoot, right? And it's done better than everything else, and you're like, fuck, I didn't expect this to, great. Like, I could think of 3 or 4 sets of groups that I would take this and send it to. Like, who do you think a best pizza video would attract?
The Barstool demographic.
Barstool demographic, absolutely. 100%, that would work. I mean, especially since Barstool's doing pizza reviews right now. But see, that's an interesting point. So Barstool was just sports. And now they're out grading pizza. Do those two things go together? Somebody could probably argue, but I don't think there's really any connection between pizza and sports. But except that you may eat it while you're watching sports, but in a brand sense, there's no connection. But it's just another opportunity to go out there and expand that Barstool name. I would target families because pizza is an easy, quick meal to give your children, and it's cheap. And everybody, with the exception of Dylan, eats pizza. He's the only person I've met in the world that doesn't eat pizza, and except those that like may have a dietary restriction from whatever it is. I would also target foodies because there's people who are heavily into food, and I would target lookalike audiences. So a lookalike audience is something that looks like within a 1% variance of what it is. So I would take the audience that liked it, create what's called a lookalike audience, and target them. All of this may sound crazy, and literally all of this I've learned from YouTube. I'm not like, him and I were just having this conversation as we were walking down here. He's like, all right, well, what do I do? And I'm like, you go to YouTube and you type in how to run Facebook ads, because that's what I did. I wasn't born with like internal Facebook ad expertise.
Kind of like away from this, but like, do you run the same content through, so I only follow you on Instagram. Do you run the same content through everything, or do you save something specifically for, like LinkedIn's obviously going to be different than what you put on Instagram and Facebook, but do you kind of interchange what you put on Instagram and
Yes.
Facebook? So like
because here's why. So people, as long as it's specific to the platform, because there's a difference in, for example, YouTube, which is widescreen, versus the rest of the platforms, which are, although not natively square on mobile. And most of consumption of social media is being done on mobile. Very few people are doing it on desktop. I think it's gotten to the point where it's almost like 85% mobile and like 15% desktop. But like even that number's changed significantly over the last couple of years. So yes, I would put the same content, and here's why. So if I didn't post the same content on, because I was like, you know what, this is more business based, I'm gonna put this on LinkedIn. You may never seen any of it because you're just watching YouTube. Or you may spend more time on YouTube, but no time on Instagram and LinkedIn. So you see something on YouTube and you're like, let me go find more of what this is. I think it's like, do I go to multiple networking events or do I just go to one networking event? I think we all play in different things, and we instinctually gravitate to what we're most comfortable with. So I think it's an and strategy rather than an or strategy, as long as it's applicable to the network that you're on. And then those are technical specifics that, once again, you can Google, like the differences between, but yes, I do think you can take your content and repurpose it across networks. Like to the point where we're taking, I have an intern back in my office right now, we're taking podcasts and we're transcribing them into text, and we're gonna put that on Medium. For those that may wanna read a podcast or read a conversation, or in my mind, what happens is the reason is I have my Medium linked to Apple News. So in my mind, the reason I'm doing this is because somebody's going to do a Google search for interview with Gary V. Guy, and my interview is going to pop up. And it wouldn't hadn't I done this. So I think it's how you do all of it, and we'll talk more about how we use content when we get into like the audio side of the segment. But yes, I would use it for absolutely everything. Questions? Anything else so far? Cool. We're having a good time. Instagram. I would post 3 to 5 times a day in feed, and 5 to 9 stories a day. Stories are kind of like the cameraman following you in your day as to what you're doing. The posts are more of the value that you provide people. And you can get creative with all of it. Like I run a contest, I want to say daily, but I do fuck up, called Where Am I? Where I'll take pictures all over various points in New York, and I'll make some easier than others. And if somebody gets it right, they get a $5 gift card to Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts. And once again, this goes to the fact that nobody buys anybody anything, right? So like when you enter an actual contest on the internet and win and get a gift card in the mail, you're like, fuck. And that's really what it is. It's about creating those fuck moments in people's minds, because that's what people remember. What makes good content is it's got to be real. It's got to be what it is, and it's got to be your perspective on it. Because the one thing is, social has allowed everybody to believe that their opinion matters, and a lot of people's opinions don't. But it's how you take your opinion and layer it to the world. And once again, to me, it goes back to what we talked about at the beginning about authenticity. You know, obviously there's, and anybody that's watched my content, there's a very big difference between myself and I would say 99.9% of the real estate brokers in New York. I mean, I don't think that there's many brokers that would show up to teach a class in sweatpants. But this is what I wear.
You changed your look. I remember we met, you don't remember me, but we met at Relo 10 years ago.
Okay. Yeah.
And I know your dad too, so.
Oh yeah?
So you were, totally, I was right here on 19th. 250.
Where were you on? Are you on the 12th floor?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
You grew your beard out.
I grew my beard out. I stopped.
I'm surprised you don't have any tats, so do you?
I do. I do. But I think that's important. I really think, because at the end of the day, what differentiates us? The name on the logo on our business card. You know, we know what our clients think of real estate brokers. We don't have the greatest reputation in the world because the majority of our peers suck. It's just a pure fact of what this business is. When it takes 75 hours to get a fucking license, the majority are just gonna suck. And that's why you have the attrition that you do, because it's easy to get a license, it's not easier to run a business. And that's what it is. And people don't look at it as such. And that's why, like what we were saying, like the first 6.5 years, I didn't feel like that. I was like, I do deals, I make some fun, I see the city, you know? So I think, getting back to good content, I think it's authenticity, and I think it's your version of what it is. It also depends on what you want to do with it. Like me, I have aspirations of becoming a household name internationally. Some people just want to grow a business, right? So obviously your strategy may be different. I also want to help people on an exorbitant level because it's who I am. So before, up until about 2 years ago, I ran a Boy Scout troop in Queens and had been involved in scouting for almost 30 years. And when I walked away, I realized I needed to do something to like give back to people, and realized that a lot of the lessons I used to teach my scouts or the lessons I teach my agents were applicable across any business. They were more like life lessons. And started consuming some Gary Vee and realized that I had my own unique perspective on a lot of different things, and used some of that model to turn to who I am. You know, we were having a conversation the other day that good artists copy and great artists steal. And I truly believe that's true. I think it's taking it and then layering who you are over it. One second. And that, I think it makes good content. I think, like, and this was talking, we were talking about, like, if you're not in front of the camera but you want to write more. It's very easy to take pictures of things on Instagram and tell the story in 3 paragraphs as to that moment in time of what it was. You know, and because of filters and phones, it's so easy to take a good picture now. It's almost impossible not to. But even that, like, how do I take a good picture? Google, how do it? And that's literally the answer to everything. It sounds stupid and mundane, but all the information in the world is out there. Like, and it's using it and understanding it to make yourself different.
You use the acronym GTS. You know what that is?
No.
Google that shit.
Oh, Google that shit? I'm with it. So once again, strategy, Instagram, and you'll notice on these are all very similar. It's consistency, it's authenticity. It's also about engaging with hashtags. and those that you follow, the same way we were talking about engaging with those that you follow on Instagram, on Facebook. Hashtags are just another version of people nowadays. But it's people that are into whatever that is. So it's almost a one-up on an individual, because as an individual we have multiple facets to who we are. And what you'll find is, unfortunately right now, because of where social is, people believe you have to be singly faceted. And I just don't think that's who we are as people. I think somebody could like golf and cats in the same exact realm. And we'll follow people because of golf, we'll follow others because of cats, but won't stop following people because one of the cat people you post likes guns. And you're like, fuck guns, right? Unless they're obnoxious and posting 32 times a day, you're just gonna ignore it because you like their cat stuff. And I think we're gonna see that shift more into being like circly faceted into who we are. So I think it's important in engaging with hashtags that are things that you're into. I think it's a huge opportunity because people are already saying, I like this. And it's an in that doesn't exist really anywhere else on social right now. Questions about Instagram before I switch over to LinkedIn.
You said, I'm sorry, you said 3 to 5
3 to 5 posts?
And something else, 9 stories, I think you said?
5 to 9 stories a day. Now with stories, just so you know, you don't. Huh?
How long does it usually take?
So we'll talk about that. Without a videographer, it probably takes just on Instagram 30 to 45 minutes a day.
Do you use like Buffer or anything like
That's
that?
Buffer.
Buffer is something that like you can kind of pre-plan stories to go.
No.
Like Hootsuite.
Yeah.
Yeah, we tried to use an aggregator and just didn't like the results because I believe, and I could be wrong, that they know you're using these things. And as a byproduct, like we saw our engagement significantly drop and are just maybe now getting back to like the engagement point we were at before we started using those things. So like my belief in just life is anything that's easy, I don't want to do, because there's a reason. And like, can you hack at things? Yeah, but I think people know, and I think the systems know, and I think it fucks you internally. But the easy thing to do with stories is not think of it like I have to shoot the story within Instagram in that mode and post right then. You can take photos, leave them in your phone and post them up from there. You can take videos and then use a piece of it from there. So it doesn't always need to be holding the button and then talking because you're in the Instagram environment right then. You can just go into your camera and then it's on your phone and then you can upload it. So like when I put up Where Am I? 9 times out of 10, that photo was not taken that day. It was just a photo. Like I literally just took, I'm not gonna tell you where, but, because I know one of you are gonna be like, oh, I know where this is, I want my coffee, right?
I'll just have my wife do it.
There you go. Well, your wife will get a cup of coffee. So I literally took this picture of a church being renovated earlier today, right? And I would guess that sometime next week, this will be the contest. But it was literally just something I was walking by and click, let me take a picture.
That's what I do with this. I was just at a construction site and I videoed the progress.
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna post it today.
Right. You can, or whatever your thing is. It depends on how much you've built. And it takes time. We're now at a point where we're about a week ahead from a calendar standpoint. So like the stuff that we're shooting today probably won't be out for another week or so. And then we'll probably create from this one thing and the questions you have 40 or 50 pieces of micro content that then will then run through all the networks like we do.
And that is, too, you can keep a production calendar, you know, that.
It's exactly what we do.
You don't have to adhere to it 100%, but it gives you.
I disagree. I think you have to adhere to it 100%.
I think it gives you a good, at least framework for most people to at least get accustomed to following.
Yeah, I mean, we have very, very specific, like, this is what we put up every day on this is what we put up here on this is what we put up here on this. I would tell you guys to all do it yourselves before you hire somebody, because then you'll know how it works. So then when you hire somebody and they give you a bullshit response, you're like, I don't believe you. And that's important because, you know, while the creative is becoming more and more and more important and so on, it's also getting commoditized because how fast technology is increasing. Because the fact that you can shoot 4K video at 60 frames per second from your iPhone rivals what were $150,000 cameras 5 years ago. And now it's in your pocket. So could you do that? And then because it's 4K and so crisp, create something that's 1080p. And if I'm talking too technically specific for you guys, feel free to interject. That looks amazing. Yeah, because you have a lot more data and you can do it through basic video apps, video editing apps, some of which now even exist on your phone. Like my agent Angel, and I don't know if any of you follow her name's Angel Citi, literally does everything, all her videos through an app on her phone. I think it was like $6. Does all the content, like visualize the pieces and then puts it all together through the phone. And that's just today. So when you think about 4, 5, 10, 15 years from now, it's only going to advance more.
What about the value in, before you put this on the
Yeah.
value in like live video and like live feed?
I think there's a lot of value in it.
Because I know it lives on the platform like a story for
24 hours.
for 24 hours. It's the same thing, but like,
I think it's...
do you see who views that afterwards?
Yes.
And you see who
You
views
see the
it
same way.
while?
So like, let me show you. I don't have a live up right now,
Mhm.
but like when you're on Instagram, so about to teach social media class, right? When you swipe up, you see who's followed.
So live is the same way.
Live is exactly the same way.
Okay.
What happens is
Does it differentiate between who viewed it live and who viewed
No.
it? No.
no, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You know, a view is a view.
Mhm.
Someone live has the ability to engage.
Yeah.
Someone post live can still comment,
Mhm.
because you'll still get the notifications that Billy commented on the live, and you still could respond.
Mhm.
But I don't think there's a difference between the two. But the importance of live, I think it is. I think it's important. I think you can do it from a couple of perspectives, depending on what your goal is. Like I use live more as a question and answer segment than anything else. There's very little else that I live. I probably could have live this, but I'd rather record it. The problem is the quality of live is always a little bit less than anything else because you're constantly streaming it out. Just it's where bandwidth is right now.
Mhm.
But you know, for me, I'd rather take this and edit it and make it look crisp, and then upload that to wherever we go. But I'm a big believer in live. And what I've tried to do in how that became an importance is like, so I spend a lot of time in my car because we do Manhattan, Brooklyn, and Queens. I can be anywhere at any given time. And for me, it was like, okay, well, how do I make the best use of my time in the car? Right? Because I can sit there and drive and listen to the radio or listen to my phone or whatever, and it's like, all right, I'm not really doing much. So I realized that I could take those moments and go on live and answer questions because the reality is I'm still driving anyway. Is it safe? Nah. I want to believe it is. I'm not touching the phone. It's on like a fucking thing on my screen, on my windshield. But I very much so believe it's important. But it's a consistency again. It's like, how often are you going to do this? Are you going to go live every Tuesday at 5 o'clock, right? And some people do. For me, it's more of when I'm in the car, and it's either coming to work or going home from work, and then taking those moments to answer questions. And a lot of the questions end up being like this, like not necessarily about any, let me rephrase this. A lot of the questions end up being something about like something, but not necessarily what I was talking about. And then I'll use the dead time where people aren't asking questions to talk about something. And I find those specifics to come from like shit that's going on in my day. Like my agent that had a deal fall apart because of this. We'll talk about that. Maybe not the agent, but like why it fell apart and how you can do this and you know how you can prevent it from doing it. And the milk's already on the floor, you can't cry about it. What do you do so the glass doesn't fall over again? And those things get people to engage. I also am really now trying to get people to join the live. So on Facebook and Instagram, you can actually join on the live, and it literally is like a split screen. So it's like you're at the top and their other person's at the bottom. And I'll let them come on and ask a question the same way they would type a question. Because to me, that's just another fuck moment. And I think the more and more you create of them, the more and more opportunities you're cementing yourself in people's brains.
What's the name of that app that Angel said uses?
Videorama. LinkedIn. Strategy, once again, is very similar. It's consistency, it's so on. But it's also like slightly different because it's a business network. So you want to provide business value. And that's a little bit different than your personal opinion on things. It can be your opinion on what's going on, but it's also a great thing to like give your perspective on something that's going on specific to your business. So like new rent stabilization laws, or how a developer is going to make money, or what does this mean for my grandma who owns a 4-family, or whatever the hell it may be. There's a million different topics we can talk about. Or, you know, are people going to leave New York, or whatever the hell it may be. There's so many things, but to me, it's just a different, slightly higher level of professionality on LinkedIn. It doesn't mean you got to be the suit. It just means you need to be the source. Because I can do this like this on any network because I have a decade of experience in this business and can answer most any question. So if it's something like you're 2 years in and you're asking questions about, you know, zoning and that's out of your realm, I wouldn't do that. But if it's like, if you're doing mostly rentals or whatever it is, you built an experience in the 2 years you're doing this, and I would focus on that value because people have to rent every day. Once again, engaging with others in similar fields, because that's where business comes from. You know, so many people ask when you're dealing with like owners, are you looking to sell? Are you looking to sell? Are you looking to sell? And I think it's the worst question to fucking ask. I think the best question to ask is, what are you looking to buy? Because if you own, you're gonna buy more. Or maybe what you'll hear, especially now, is, well, we're not buying right now because of everything that's gone on in the market, and we want to hold and see the impact of what's going on. Or like we were talking about earlier before you guys walked in, of waiting until, you know, after the 2020 election, because you may perceive there's a downturn coming. And it's providing that value. It's having that conversation more than anything. But it's important to think that you want to use your post as a catalyst to trigger conversation, because that's on all of these networks. Because that's what will get more and more people to see it. The algorithm is on all of them are set to promote the things that do the best. So it's important to engage people. It's incredibly important to respond to everybody that posts. Generally, I like to use at least a 3 to 4 word response, not just a heart or like a thumbs up emoticon. And try as it can be, and everything is different. Like, oh my God, I love your posts. It's kind of hard to like ask a question out of that, but if someone is like, oh, this just happened to my aunt and so on, I'll ask a question. How did your aunt handle it? Question mark. Because once again, that's the fuck moment where somebody actually gave a shit and asked you about what was going on with you. That gives you an opportunity now to talk about yourself. So it's creating those moments that I feel that are incredibly important. YouTube. Now this is a little bit different because YouTube is more curated content. It's should be created with a specific goal in mind, and usually requires some work to create, like in the editing process and the making it look crisp and so on and so forth. Like this whole thing here, we're gonna take this hour and a half to however long it is. We're gonna cut out certain parts, we're gonna clean up this, we'll make multiple things, and then it'll go up on YouTube. So YouTube is more of the ideas that you have for creating mini TV-like episodes of things and putting it out into the world. The easiest is a vlog. So you can do a vlog without a videographer. And literally it's just like following you in your day. So it's like, all right, Tuesday, Today's Wednesday, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever it may be, right? And just a story, like the same way stories is a story of your day, YouTube is an extension of that. So just think about taking that insight into you and stories and then multiplying it, because instead of 5 to 9 stories, you've taken 55 to 100 clips, video, not picture, but like short videos, and then brought it into the creation of a piece of content. I think you can also very much so create videos of areas that you cover. So you said you do a lot of business in the East Village. I would create videos of like the best Indian restaurants, the best Italian restaurants, the best this restaurants, the best parks, the best this. Literally, you can create 100 videos of what's going on in the East Village. And the reason you do that is because when people go search and they see one, and then they see 82, they're like, fuck, this dude is actually knows what he's talking about the East Village. Let me call him. Or better yet, let me share this with my friend that actually is living there or needs to move. Or let me tag my friend who I think would like this as well. Because you never know when whoever you contact or connect with will become business. I mean, I've had situations where I've known people for 20 years and been in the business a decade and never got anything, and then got a phone call and like, hey, I need your help. Never got a referral, never got anything, but because they saw and we were connected and they continually saw what I was putting out, when that moment came, they didn't realize I already cemented myself in their brain. So that's when they picked up the phone and called. Because you never know, it could be tomorrow, it could be 5 years from now. So it's hard because it is a lot of work. And it's a lot of work that doesn't pay immediately. But I don't think there's a better investment right now. And that includes Street Easy. I think giving money to Street Easy is the stupidest thing you can do. Because you're helping to build their brand rather than build your own. And with the cost of targeted ads, you can connect so many more people than the attention that's just on their network.
I started also interviewing local businesses.
It's
Just
a great idea.
Short little videos.
Great idea.
So in my neighborhood.
Yeah, yeah.
They
Where
see
do
me.
you?
I'm in Midtown East.
Okay.
So, you know, I've owned there for 22 years, but I've only lived there for like the last 10.
Okay.
And so they see me around. I don't ask anybody for any business. I just hey, what's up? And of course, when they know you're a real estate agent, they all want to know. Like if you're a stockbroker.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
How's
the market? Yeah.
So I just tell them. I
Yeah.
never ask them for anything else. I don't ask them for their number. I just hey, you know, I make sure I acknowledge them when I run into them again. It's like, hey, how you doing?
I might start asking them for numbers.
Well.
Or I mean, here's
Yeah.
the next level to it, right? You can create like an email list. We all have different versions of it, right? But then you can take that email list and upload it into Facebook, because most people use one email, right? Or one email for the majority of their stuff. And then create a subgroup that are just those people that are on your list. So you can target them so they see it, because the algorithm won't allow all of your followers to see everything that you post. It's just the way these networks are right now. So I hear you. I think there may be a better way to continue to stay top of mind in addition to just showing up and seeing your face. Because the reality is we forget things so quickly. Like, we don't think about the fact that there's still parts of Puerto Rico that don't have power. We don't think about the fact that there's still places in Haiti that are still fucked up from that tornado.
10 years ago.
Yeah, it wasn't even 10 years ago, right? So because our attention span is so quick because of these things, people forget. And then what happens is you walk past this business and now it's a different restaurant, right? And then you see the dude that owns it 2 weeks later, he's like, oh man, I meant to call you. It's happened to all of us. Oh shit. And that oh shit is your fault. It's always your fault. Because you didn't cement yourself in that person's brain. And social allows you to do it in a way that people don't even understand that you're attacking them. And maybe attacking them is the wrong word and too strong, but that's what the fuck it is.
Yeah.
But yes, the
local
neighborhoods.
businesses, and also one minute videos. This is stuff that I'm learning from these other gurus as well. One guy named runs a company called Blitz Media.
Okay.
Dennis Yu is his name. He's got a lot of free stuff as well.
Yeah.
And so he's got a strategy where you also, besides your business page or something, you create also a page that's your name, and you set it up as like, let's say you said you're in Glendale, so let's say Mike from Glendale. That's a separate page, and you post that other local content there. You're doing 1 minute videos, and then you cross promote them. So what his strategy is, which you got to wrap your head around, because this guy is a former Yahoo tech guy, so he talks a mile a minute. But the idea is to organically grow that in pretty quick clip with 1 minute videos.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I would tell you from my experience on YouTube, you probably more so have to be in like
on Facebook. I meant.
Okay.
If I said YouTube, forgive me. I meant Facebook.
Absolutely. I think that makes sense. 100%. YouTube, you're looking at slightly longer format. You're looking generally like 3 to 20 minutes. And if you can cross that 10-minute plateau in that 10 to 20-minute range, those actually do better than anything else. It's just how their algorithm is set today. Tomorrow it could change totally, and they could be 1 minute videos. But that's kind of where they are today. But I would also look into like what you like. Think about what you like personally, outside of what you do for business. And I would create content about that.
I'm a foodie, so I go up and down, Midtown East, and I go pop into the restaurants, and that's where I do the content. I
mean, I would also expand out of that, because I think if you pushed yourself a little, you may end up becoming Midtown East, Upper East Side, Murray Hill, and then it's the whole East Side, right? And then it becomes the whole West Side, and then for me it became multiple boroughs, because it just made sense, and I've lived here my whole life, so like I can eat in Park Slope and then Forest Hills and then Soho, all in the same day. So it's really, I agree. I think you can expand more off of that. But it's getting back to like what you like. Like if you like golf, make a golf video. It's not hard. I mean, a tripod is, you don't need something like this. Where's your other one? It's in your bag?
Yeah, it's right there. The little gorilla pod or something?
Yeah. So like these you can buy. And it doesn't necessarily have to be, this is Gorilla, which is a little more expensive, right? But you can, damn, Dylan.
The clip thing.
Oh, there's a clip, that's why. All right, well, this is secure, nobody can rob you on train.
Exactly.
You can buy these for like $20, less than $20 on Amazon. And literally that's, it's multifaceted in the fact that it's a tripod, but then it also helps you get a better angle than what you can natively with your hand. I would definitely invest in one of these, and then also a trigger, which is like a Bluetooth trigger. They usually look about this big. There's a button on them, and they get your your camera rolling, so you don't have to. Can you push the button and walk back and then edit out those 4 seconds? Yeah, absolutely. But sometimes it's just easier to have it in your hand and press the button.
They usually come with the selfie sticks.
Some of them do. But we're talking minor, non-expensive
very inexpensive
purchases.
Does that also like wrap around things?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'll send you, if you guys want, I'll send you a link to the one that I bought off of Amazon. It's like $17. Very similar to this, but it wraps. So if you're somewhere and you want to put it on a post.
You have a list maybe of recommended tools? Or
I don't. I may, because Amazon has been targeting me with like ads consistently. They have something called an Amazon Influencers Program, where you put up like products you recommend and like people buy them. I haven't done it because.
Is that the FBA thing?
No, it's a little bit different because it's products that are already in there. You don't have to actually sell anything. So essentially, you're using your brand equity to drive sales to Amazon, and then you get a small percentage of whatever you ultimately sell. I probably will in the near future, but if you just message me, I'll send you what it is. All right, I'm about to talk about audio, SoundCloud, podcast, Apple Podcast, and Spotify. I think this is a huge market. I think this may be the biggest of all the networks we've talked about yet in what it will become. Because we are consuming more and more, and it's a way, I think, so Gary Vee, and I don't personally consume much of him anymore, just it's my own personal thing, talks about how he believes that in the morning we're going to consume through audio 5 to 7 minutes of like what's going on, what our day looks like, whether it's while we're taking a shower or taking a shit or whatever the hell our morning looks like. I think we're going to have that at multiple points in our day. I think we're going to, have some sort of virtual assistant as Siri or whatever the Android one gets better, that really kind of guide us almost like an assistant. So I think as we do that, we're going to instinctually consume more and more audio. And audio is the easiest thing to create because, all of you literally can do it right now with your phones. And the voice recorder on the iPhone is very, 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 very good. Like you can literally interview, like I've done podcasts where I forgot the memory card. No, like I had all the equipment, but I forgot the memory card, so I couldn't record shit. And I was like, all right, well, we're gonna do it on this. And it sounds almost as clear as the equipment that I've purchased. I can send you what that is. None of it is super expensive. The voice recorder that I use is $200 new, buy for like $120 on eBay used, and it's by far probably some of the best money that I've spent. What I would do is, once again, we were talking about YouTube and finding something that you like, is find something that you like and then start finding other people that like it and let them tell their stories, right? So you like food. I would talk to chefs. I would talk to foodies. I would talk to fat people. I would talk to whoever is into food and have them tell their food or their version of food stories, right? Once again, this goes back into letting people talk, right? Now, obviously, when you're talking to people, there's got to be a reason that you're talking to somebody, not just randomly any person. But you want to try to find somebody that already has a following because you want to try to siphon some of that attention and that love. But you also are looking for good people to connect with. Like, so you saw the podcast I did with Danny Nasty. And if you think of it from like a 1,000-foot perspective, it probably doesn't make any sense to interview other real estate brokers because, why? But the reality is most of our deals we do are with real estate brokers. Very few of the deals we do anymore are direct deals. I would say, there's the old adage is co-broke or go broke. And for me, it's I try to use my podcast as a barometer to find other cool people. Because I feel like if you connect with, and I don't mean cool as in like what society perceives them as, I mean it's cool as in like I want to hang out with good people. And the more I try to improve my circle, the more and more opportunities come. So I find something that you're interested in. Like, what's something you're interested in outside of work? Sports, right? That's the easiest one in the fucking world. Because everybody's got an opinion on sports. Literally, you could stop anybody. You could create one on the street where you stop people and ask them, what do you think of the Nets? Yeah. What do you think of the Nets? Do you think the Nets are going to become the predominant New York team?
Never.
See? But that moment, if you can capture that moment right there, that's gold. And literally, you enjoy it. So you're going to instinctually be like, what the fuck are you talking about? Right? Or maybe you're on the same side. Like, yeah, high five, I believe you, right? But it's that. Because then you're going to find other people that are into sports, right? And they're going to be like, oh, who is this dude? Oh shit, he does real estate too? Because once again, we all have multiple facets into who we are. Because unless you're an athlete or a coach or somebody employed somehow in sports, you're a fan. That's really what it becomes. And it's creating that for other people that you would. You can also use the audio from what you've created, your 1 minute restaurant things, to create podcasts. Assuming it's not like a ton of B-roll and so on, and it's actual conversation, I'd rip it all out and upload it. Because while it may not seem important. You never know who is going to search for that, right? That are going to be like, new restaurant, Midtown, right? And you would think that you wouldn't search for that in like an audio format, but people do. People do all the time because that's where they play most. I just sold a house to a woman in Queens who Googled New York real estate podcast, right? Because she listens to podcasts. And she was like, let me see if I can find somebody that I like and I think is real. Followed me on Instagram for 2 weeks, didn't say a word, and sends me a DM, hey, you seem like the first normal real estate broker I've encountered. Can you help me buy a home? And lo and behold, that became a $900,000 sale. We also got her the cover of the New York Times real estate section and a bunch of other press because of the whole everything behind it and how it became. I was featured in The Real Deal as a byproduct of it, and it's just where things were going. Like going back to like how do you learn things? You Google them. So when we want to find something, we Google it. That's just what we do. So does creating a podcast make you money? It can. It may not. But it's more enjoyable, and it's best when you find others that are like-minded, because you find a synchronicity that you may not have in your other engagements, and then that's another person that, who knows? I may never do a deal with Danny Nasty, but I can go to dinner with Danny, and we can have a great time, and maybe eventually Danny and I buy a building together, because Danny already owns buildings and I want to own buildings. And I wouldn't have known any of that if I didn't interview him. Finding guests is simple. Go to Instagram and you DM people. That's it. Hey, I have this podcast. I love your content. Really like your perception of things. Would love to have you as a guest. Send. Ooh, copy. Find the next person. Paste. Send. Paste. Send. Paste. Send. Paste. Send. You can DM about 110 times before Instagram will slow you down. So if you're like, well, how do I get guests? DM. Like I also curate art shows. And people ask, well, how do you get the artists? Same exact strategy. Hey, my name's Mike. I'm a real estate broker. I curate art shows and listings I represent. Love your art. Would love to have you at a future show. Let me know. One or two things that happen. They'll read it and they'll be like, yeah, that sounds great. Or they won't respond. Either way you win, because because you've done it. But it's a consistent, and this goes back to consistency like we talk about everything else. It's a consistency thing. I would say you're probably sending 30 DMs to get one response. Especially if you're trying to target those with the following versus those that, don't have a following. And I'd say those that don't, if they have an interesting story, you feel like there's something you can connect on, are just as valuable as those that have 100,000 followers or 1.5 million followers. Like if I look at my podcast, recently one of the ones that have done best is with two dudes that are buying mobile homes, right? Not Subway Creatures, who has 1.5 million followers. Not this model that was on America's Next Top Model that has 550,000 followers, but two dudes buying mobile homes. Why? Because they appreciated being given a platform, and between the two of them and their business account, shared the shit out of the video. And sometimes you never know. You never know who their audience is, bless you, that's watching, that is like, you know what? All right, I'm investing in mobile homes because I can get a 10 to 12% return. But I also want to invest in Brooklyn deeper because I know this kind of downturn coming, but people are always going to be in Brooklyn. This guy looks normal. Let me call him. And now I have a $4 million sale. And that sounds crazy, but I've had that happen. Not from their podcast, but from things just like that. Relationships have forged from totally random other things that are a byproduct of somebody else's attention. I'm going to switch to Medium and then I think I have a couple final things. But any questions yet? So Medium, once again, it's long form written. I haven't been on this network as much as I'd like to be because I just haven't done it and it's my own fuck up. But I would write opinion pieces around the business that you're in, right? As to what you think is going to go on. And so one of the articles I wrote, we were talking about Amazon buying Compass earlier, so I wrote that article about a year and change ago. And that in itself gets 10 to 50 reads a week. I don't know where the reads are coming from. I don't know what's going on. But I have been in open houses, and I've had people come in and be like, oh, I read your shit on Medium. And that sounds crazy, because who reads anything anymore, right? But there's a segment of people that do. And this goes to your question as to, do you use the same content everywhere? And I think the answer is yes. Because that person that's like, hey, I see you on Medium, might not have seen me on Instagram. Probably wouldn't have saw me on YouTube, but is on Medium. So that, and then we talked about that, about taking the podcast and transcribing them. Holy crap, it's 2 o'clock. I wrote most important detail. Okay, so the most important detail is pulling people out of social into the real world. So when you connect with people, that's great. But if you leave it virtual and you don't make it real, you lose the opportunity to truly do business. So the easiest thing is coffee. Hey, love to grab a cup of coffee and talk about this more. Very few people will say no to a cup of coffee. Now, if it's somebody that's got a significant following, you need to provide a little more value than coffee because they just don't have fucking time for coffee. I try to say yes to everybody that asks me for a cup of coffee, but I don't always get around to it. Like not getting around to responding, but getting around to actually meeting and having a cup of coffee. But I would say there's a ton of people that you connect with that very well that relationship will start over that cup of coffee. Because while we're okay with communicating almost strictly electronically, there's still something about that human connection when you sit with somebody and look at them face to face and look in their eyes and talk or joke about Jersey Nets. They're always the New Jersey Nets to me. They'll never be the Brooklyn Nets. Bigger people, you need to provide value in something, right? In some way, shape, or form. And sometimes that's giving them a platform. It's like, hey, listen, I have this thing. I'd love to have you as a guest, and it works for what they're doing. But pulling them out, I think, is the most important thing. And it's finding things that you like. Going back to what we were talking about YouTube. I hate to sound redundant, but it's not complicated. It's the same thing, regardless of what it is, all tweaked just a little. So like when 3 of these networks don't exist in 5 years, and that may sound crazy, but there was something called MySpace that's gone. That there's been various networks that have gone like this. Twitter, for example, is Snapchat. And Snapchat is a unique animal in itself, but Vine was something that was huge and isn't anymore. And it's gonna happen.
But they shot themselves in the leg with that Rihanna thing. That really started.
I think anybody can shoot themselves in the foot at any minute just because of their wrong perception on a single situation. So like I think what Facebook is doing with data, I think could put them out of business. Not from a government interceding and saying fuck you, but from people being like, go fuck yourself.
They've already gotten that backlash.
Right, and that's, they're smart. That's also why they bought Instagram. That's why they tried to buy Snapchat. It's because they're just buying the attention in different places, and they understand that. I do think that could be the downfall of Facebook at some point. And then we'll be like, oh, remember Facebook? And people look at you like, oh, it's Facebook. Because the kids won't remember. Like, if you think of millennials they don't remember an analog world. They grew up in a 100% digital world. So if we lost power tomorrow, they'd be fucked. Straight fucked. Because they wouldn't know how to do it. They wouldn't know how to get 20 blocks away because they're so used to putting the directions into their phone and be like, okay. So, once again, what I'd love to drive home is consistency, authenticity, and consistency. I think those are your most important things in all of these. And try to find good people. The more good people you have in your life, the better. And people that are shitty or don't believe in it, get rid of them. Even if they're family. I mean, this is a whole other conversation in itself, but like, you're gonna be the sum of who's around you. So if you wanna grow, you gotta be around people that are, at least what you perceive, doing bigger and better things than whatever you are at. That's it for me, so I will answer whatever questions you guys have now.
In your podcast,
Yeah.
Do you write the questions down, or you just have the conversation organically?
So I've tried both ways. Like I don't necessarily write questions out. Like I'll do some research as to who the person is and to like what they've done, and I'll take like very similar to what I did here. I'll take bullet points and go off of that. And then I've done the going blind. I don't know that either works better or worse. And I was having the same conversation the other day with somebody that has a significantly larger podcast than mine. And they said the same thing. They said the one thing about the prep is like you don't come out of it being like, oh fuck, I should ask this question. But then the just not having any prep sometimes brings up a lot more organic conversation than if you were like, okay, so tell me about the time you ran the marathon, or whatever it may be. It's more of a try things than anything. So we were just on a phone call before we were here with the designer about creating a logo and creating some other things. And personally, I have no interest. I don't think they're valuable. I think they're dumb personally. But my videographer believes they're important. So part of doing that is empowering him to see that, okay, I don't believe it, but I'm gonna try it. Because you never know. Maybe it is important. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm not wrong. But if you invest and empower the people that are around you, that's how you keep them around you the longest. And then he's like, well, why are you telling me this? And I'm like, because you want to manage people later at some point, dickhead. And that's real. Like being real with people is one of the most important things. And so many of us don't do it at all in any of our engagements with clients, with our family, with ourselves. So that's it for me. I am happy to answer anything else that you guys may have. Good? Cool. If you guys need anything, have any questions, like as you try to implement some of this, feel free to message me. If you want to talk more about like what I'm doing in future and my growth and like where you may want to be, we can grab a cup of coffee.
Best way to contact you.
Huh?
Best way to contact
DM or text. Yeah.
You say YouTube how to run Facebook ads. Like, you know, when you do that, sometimes you get the BS videos.
Right. But you have to watch the BS videos.
Channels, huh?
You have to watch the BS videos.
Oh.
So think about it like this, right? So you Google how to run Facebook ads, right? And then be prepared to watch 45 hours of videos. And then what happens is by hour 31, you realize that the video you watched at hour 2 is bullshit. Or at that point you realize, oh shit, this makes sense because this dude said this or this chick said this and now it all ties together. So you have to deal with the bullshit because that's how you learn that it's bullshit. Because you won't know it's bullshit until you've done enough to understand the landscape.
Okay.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Thank
Pleasure.
you. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Appreciate
My
your time.
pleasure. Absolutely. Have a great day.